I was walking through a bookstore the other day, just browsing, kind of killing time, and I ended up in the self-help section.
Ah, the land of promises.
Exactly. And I was just struck by how much real estate, how many shelves are dedicated to this one single concept. It's everywhere.
Let me guess. Forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
Mhm.
It was on books about marriage, books about trauma, workplace conflict, even huge books about political division. It's the universal prescription.
It is. It's become the industry standard solution for pretty much any interpersonal problem, right? It's marketed as the Swiss Army knife of emotional healing.
It really is. And the messaging is so consistent. It's like a script we've all been handed. You hear it from
Yeah.
day one.
Oh, yeah.
You have to forgive to move on. Good people forgive. Or, my personal favorite, holding a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
We've all heard that one 1,000 times.
So many times. And the message, the command underneath it all is just crystal clear. Forgiveness is the gold standard. If you're a good person, an evolved person, you forgive. You just let it go.
And of course, the implication that comes with that is, what if you don't?
Or then you're the problem. You're bitter. You're broken. You're stuck in the past. But today, for this deep dive, we are taking that exact assumption that forgiveness is this mandatory part of a healthy life, and we are putting it right under the microscope.
We are. We've got a whole stack of sources here: moral philosophy, clinical psychology, trauma research, and they all suggest something that I think might make a lot of people feel a bit uncomfortable.
And what's that?
They're suggesting that this constant pressure to forgive isn't just, annoying background noise. It might actually be harmful.
Harmful how?
Well, it leads to this phenomenon that kept popping up in the literature. It's called the second wound. And honestly, when I first read that term, it stopped me in my
The
tracks.
second wound. That sounds visceral. It sounds like something from an ER, not a therapist's office.
It feels visceral. The idea is this. The first wound is the actual event. The betrayal, the abuse, the lie, whatever happened to you.
Right, the thing that caused the pain.
And that's bad enough. It shatters your trust, your sense of safety. But the second wound, that's what happens after. It's when society or your family or even just that voice in your own head looks at you and says, it's been 6 months. Why haven't you forgiven them yet? Why are you still holding on to this?
Wow. So the first wound is what they do to you, and the second wound is the judgment you get from everyone else for not healing on their schedule.
Precisely. It's this incredible double burden. You're hurt by the wrongdoer, and then you're morally judged by society for not forgiving quickly enough. You go from being the person who was hurt to being the person who is now somehow doing healing wrong.
You're not just a victim, you're a moral failure.
You are. You carry the burden of the injury, and then you're handed the burden of the solution. And that's our mission for this deep dive, to really unpack that dynamic. We want to get past the Hallmark card version of forgiveness. We're not asking how to forgive. We are asking a much bigger, much more fundamental question. Do we actually have a duty to forgive? Is it a moral obligation? Or is forgiveness actually optional?
I have a feeling this is going to be a really liberating conversation for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But before we can even get into whether we have to do it, we need to be incredibly clear on what it even is.
Yes.
Because my hunch is when we feel that pressure or when we argue about forgiveness, we're often talking about completely different things.
That's the first major hurdle. The semantic confusion around the word is massive. And if you look at the psychological definitions in our source material, they're so specific about what forgiveness is not.
And that's where people get tripped up.
It's where almost everyone gets tripped up. We conflate forgiveness with all these other things that are actually, well, they can be quite dangerous.
Okay, so let's bust the myths first.
Uh-huh.
What's the biggest one the sources point to?
The biggest one, and the one that causes the most resistance for people, is condoning.
Condoning. Meaning, if I forgive you, I'm saying what you did was okay.
Exactly. People feel like forgiving someone is like retroactively signing off on the behavior. It's like you're giving them a permission slip to do it again. But the sources are just emphatic on this point. Forgiveness is not moral amnesia.
It's not looking at a crime and deciding to call it a simple mistake.
Not at all. You can forgive someone while 100% maintaining that what they did was abhorrent, illegal, morally bankrupt, whatever. Forgiveness does not require you to change your assessment of the event itself.
That's a huge distinction because I think people worry that forgiveness is a form of weakness.
Mm-hmm.
Like being a doormat, just saying, oh, it's fine, don't worry about it.
Right.
But you're saying you can forgive someone while still saying, That was absolutely not fine, and it will never be fine.
100%. And that leads right into the second major misconception, which is it's arguably even stickier, and that's reconciliation.
Okay. The idea that if I forgive you, we have to be friends again.
Yes. This is the one that keeps people stuck in anger for years, especially in messy family dynamics. We just assume forgiveness means restoration, that if I forgive my toxic ex or my estranged parent or the business partner who stole from me,
I have to let them back in.
I have to let them back in. I have to trust them again. I have to invite them over for the holidays.
Because that's the movie ending, right? The hug in the rain, the slow motion montage of everyone laughing over a meal.
That's the fantasy. But in the real world and in the ethical frameworks of our sources, forgiveness and reconciliation are two completely separate things.
How so?
Reconciliation is a two-person job. It's a negotiation. It requires trust and safety and proof of changed behavior. Forgiveness, that only requires one person, you.
So just to be absolutely clear for anyone listening,
Yeah.
I can forgive someone and still have a restraining order against them.
You can forgive them and never, ever speak to them again for the rest of your life. You can forgive them while you are sitting in a courtroom testifying against them to make sure they go to prison for what they did. Forgiveness does not mean dropping boundaries. It absolutely does not mean dropping consequences.
Okay, so if it's not condoning and it's not reconciling and it's not forgetting, what is it? What's the actual, the positive definition?
The consensus definition in the literature usually boils down to a change of heart. It's an internal shift. It's the process of decoupling your emotional state from the person who hurt you.
Decoupling, I like that.
Think about it. When you're in a state of non-forgiveness, you're usually driven by resentment, right? You're tethered to that person by your anger. You want something bad to happen to them. You want revenge. You want them to hurt as much as you do.
It's that thirst for cosmic justice, even if it's passive, like just hoping they lose their job or get dumped. You find yourself checking their social media, secretly hoping for bad news.
Exactly. Forgiveness, then, is the decision, or more often, this really slow, grueling process of letting go of that specific desire for them to suffer.
So it's not that you have to start wishing them well.
Not at all. You don't have to send them a birthday card. But you stop waking up hoping they fail. You start seeing them as just a flawed human being. Maybe a dangerous one, maybe a broken one, but a person, not a monster who defines your entire existence.
So it's really about evicting them from your head.
That's a perfect way to put it. You're reclaiming the mental real estate they've been squatting in for months or years. It's about changing your narrative so you're no longer the victim who's just waiting for the villain to pay. You're the protagonist and you're moving forward.
Okay, that makes so much more sense. When you strip away the requirement to hug it out or pretend it was okay, forgiveness sounds a lot more attractive. It sounds like something I'd want for myself. But this is where our deep dive really turns the corner. Just because something is good for me, does that mean I have a duty to do it?
And this is where we have to get really careful with our language, the word duty. In moral philosophy, words have real weight. And when we say something is a duty, we're not just offering a helpful tip.
It's not a life hack. It's not like saying, hey, you should try yoga. It's good for you.
Exactly. It's a moral obligation. It's mandatory.
It's a tax.
It is. If you have a duty to pay your taxes and you don't, you've broken the law. If you have a duty to care for your child and you don't, you are morally negligent. So if we claim there is a duty to forgive, what we're logically implying is that a victim who cannot bring themselves to forgive is morally failing. They are bad.
When you frame it that way, it just sounds incredibly harsh.
It's brutal.
Imagine saying that to a survivor of a violent crime. Hey, I know you're in immense pain, but on top of all that, you're also failing a moral test because you're still angry.
It's cruel, and that is the fairness test that our sources propose. Is it fundamentally fair to heap that additional burden on someone who is already carrying the immense weight of the initial trauma?
Piling guilt on top of pain.
Yes, and yet, and this is the tension that makes this whole topic so fascinating and so difficult. There are some very intelligent, very compassionate philosophers who argue that, yes, we do have that duty. And their arguments aren't just about, being nice. They're about survival.
Okay, so let's dig into that. Let's play devil's advocate here. Because I can see someone listening and thinking, well, if I don't forgive, I'm the one who's miserable.
Right.
So what's the strongest case for a duty to forgive?
The first and maybe the most common argument is self-preservation. It comes right back to that drinking poison quote.
Okay.
The argument here is that we have a duty, but it's a duty to ourselves.
Not to the person who wronged me.
No, not to them. To you. The idea is that if I'm constantly harboring hatred, if my mind is just ruminating on vengeance day in and day out, my body is being flooded with cortisol. My sleep gets disrupted. My immune system is suppressed. My relationships with other people, people who had nothing to do with it, they start to suffer because I'm bitter and I'm on edge all the time.
So the duty isn't owed to the person who wronged me. It's owed to the me of next year who deserves a chance at peace.
Correct. The argument is, do you respect yourself? Do you value your own well-being? If the answer is yes, then you have a moral obligation to excise this poison from your own soul. By refusing to forgive, you are essentially choosing to remain injured. You're holding the wound open.
So it's like a form of emotional hygiene. You brush your teeth to prevent cavities. You forgive to prevent bitterness. You owe it to your future self.
In a sense, yes, but then the argument zooms out. It goes from the individual to the societal. And this is the breaking the cycle argument.
This feels incredibly relevant right now.
Always. I mean, look at history. Look at, intergenerational family feuds or gang violence or even international conflicts. The logic is always an eye for an eye.
Right. They did this to us, so we're justified in doing this back to them.
Yeah, exactly. Side A hurts side B. Side B feels completely justified in striking back to balance the scales. Then side A, feeling victimized by the retaliation, hits back even harder. It's a perpetual motion machine of misery.
It's the Hatfields and the McCoys, just scaled up or down.
It is. And the philosophical argument here is that without forgiveness, entropy just takes over. Chaos wins. Someone, at some point, has to be the circuit breaker.
Someone has to absorb the pain without passing it on.
That is the perfect definition of forgiveness in this context. It's the act of saying, the buck stops here, the pain ends with me. So the argument goes, if we don't have a social duty to forgive, then we are basically resigning ourselves to a world where conflict never ends. We have a civic duty to put down the sword.
That's a really compelling point. It raises the stakes beyond just my own feelings. It's about the fabric of society. If everyone holds a grudge forever, society it collapses into tribal warfare.
And that leads to the third and final major argument for the duty. This one is often rooted in religious traditions, but it has a powerful secular version too, and it's the argument of shared imperfection.
Meaning, we're all flawed.
Meaning we all screw up, you, me, everyone listening. We have all hurt people. Maybe not in the same dramatic way we've been hurt, but we've lied, we've broken a promise, we've been selfish, we've been careless. We are not perfect.
It's the classic, he who is without sin cast the first stone argument.
It is, and the logic is about reciprocity. Since every single one of us will inevitably need forgiveness at some point in our lives, we have a standing duty to extend it to others. You can't just participate in a system of mercy when you're the one asking for it. You have to also be willing to grant it. It's about recognizing our shared human frailty.
Okay, so just to recap the case FR a duty. 1, it's an act of self-preservation to save ourselves from bitterness. 2, it's a social necessity to stop endless cycles of revenge. And 3, it's a moral requirement based on our own shared imperfection.
That's the case.
And I have to say, that's a pretty strong case. If we stop the deep dive right here, I'd probably walk away saying, okay, fine. I guess I have a duty to forgive everyone. It's for my own good and the good of the world. But we're not stopping here. Because as logical as all of that sounds, it just clashes so violently with the raw human experience of being deeply hurt.
It clashes with our sense of justice, and it clashes with the biological reality of trauma. And this brings us to the case against a strict duty to forgive, and the pushback in our sources is fierce. It centers on one critical word: autonomy.
This goes right back to that second wound we talked about at the start.
It's the core of it. Think about what defines being a victim, whether it's a physical assault, a financial scam, emotional abuse. The core feature is a profound loss of control.
Someone else took your power.
Someone else overpowered you. They decided what happened to your body or your money or your sense of safety. They took your agency away.
And then, after all that, here comes society or your family or a well-meaning friend saying, and now, here's what you must do with your feelings about it. You must forgive.
Exactly. If we command forgiveness, if we make it a duty, we are taking the victim's agency away all over again. We are telling them how to feel. We are dictating the terms of their own inner life.
It's like we're colonizing their recovery.
What a powerful way to put it. The counter-argument is that a victim's inner world, their grief, their rage, their healing process, that is their private property, to demand they resolve it on our timeline in a way that makes us comfortable is a profound violation of their dignity.
That is a chilling thought. It's essentially saying, you were hurt, and now you are required to perform a certain kind of healing that makes the rest of us feel better.
And that word comfortable is the key, because that leads to the second major argument against this duty, the risk of minimizing harm.
How did that work?
When we rush forgiveness, when we treat it like an item on a spiritual checklist, what we're really doing is trying to avoid the discomfort of someone else's pain. We want it to go away.
It's the just get over it mentality,
Yeah.
but dressed up in more virtuous language.
And who does that benefit? It benefits the wrongdoer, and it benefits the bystanders who don't want to deal with the messy reality of what happened. In abusive relationships, and this is a huge point in the domestic violence literature, the demand for forgiveness is a classic tool of control.
Oh, I can see that. The abuser says, if you really loved me, or if you were a good Christian, or if you were a truly supportive partner, you would forgive me for what I did.
Yes, it becomes a weapon. You have a duty to forgive me, so let's just move on. It protects the status quo. It allows us to skip the messy, difficult work of accountability. We sweep the dirt under the rug, but the problem, the systemic issue, is still there. We haven't fixed anything. We've just silenced the person who was brave enough to point it out.
So it prioritizes a false peace over real justice.
Which isn't peace at all, it's just silence. And then, of course, there's the big one, the question of severity. Are there some acts that are just beyond the pale?
Are some things simply unforgivable?
This is the third pillar of the argument against a universal duty. We have to be willing to look at the extremes. Torture, genocide, the sexual abuse of a child by a parent, to look at a survivor of those things, someone whose entire life has been shaped by that horror, and to say to them, you have a moral duty to forgive your tormentor.
It feels obscene.
Many philosophers would agree. They argue it's a form of moral insanity. It feels offensive because it trivializes the depth of the wrong. It reduces an atrocity to something that can just be, cleared up with a change of heart.
It's like you're saying their unimaginable pain is just an inconvenience that they need to tidy up.
Right. And the argument here is that if forgiveness happens in those extreme cases, it is a miracle.
Yeah.
It is an act of almost superhuman grace. We should stand in absolute awe of it. But you cannot demand a miracle. You cannot make sainthood a requirement for being a good person.
Okay, so now we're at a complete stalemate. It's a paradox. On one hand, forgiveness seems essential for our own health and for society to function.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, demanding it re-victimizes people, enables abuse, and feels morally grotesque in the face of true evil. This feels like an impossible knot to untie.
It does, but this is where the philosophy gets really practical and I think really helpful. The sources suggest a way out of this bind is to split the concept in two. We have to make a clear distinction between our actions and our emotions.
Okay, break that down for me. What does that mean in this context?
Well, we could argue that we do have a duty when it comes to our actions, a duty to control our behavior.
So I have a duty not to seek vigilante justice.
Exactly. You have a duty not to key their car in the middle of the night. You have a duty not to harass them on social media or burn their house down. You have a duty not to become a monster in response to monstrosity.
That seems fair. I have a duty to abide by the social contract and not escalate the conflict.
Right. We can demand civilized behavior from each other. But, and this is the absolute key to the whole thing, we do not have a duty to control our feelings. We don't have a duty to feel warmth. We don't have a duty to feel inner peace. We certainly don't have a duty to like or trust that person ever again.
Because you can't command an emotion into existence.
You can't. Emotions are messy, biological, chemical things. They don't respond to a simple on-off switch. If I said to you, you have a moral duty to not feel sad right now, could you just do it?
Of course not. I just feel sad and now also guilty for feeling sad.
Exactly. So to say you have a moral duty to feel forgiveness is like saying you have a moral duty to not feel pain when you touch a hot stove. It's just not how humans work. It denies our very nature.
So the middle ground is this. I have to control what I do, but I have total freedom in what I feel.
That's the compromise.
Yeah.
It validates the anger without endorsing the retaliation. It says, I'm not going to hurt you, but I am absolutely allowed to be furious with you, and I'm allowed to be furious for as long as it takes for that feeling to run its natural course.
That feels like a huge release valve.
It is. It lets you be honest.
But there's another piece to this puzzle, isn't there? We've been talking almost entirely from the victim's perspective. What about the other side? Does the person who did the wrong thing have any role to play in this? Did they just get off scot-free?
That is a fantastic question, and it leads us to another really important idea from the sources, the theory of conditional forgiveness.
Conditional. So my forgiveness depends on something.
It suggests that our duty might not be absolute. We might have a duty to be open to the possibility of forgiveness, to not slam the door shut forever. But the duty to actually walk through that door only gets triggered if the wrongdoer meets certain conditions.
Sounds like a contract. I'll consider it, but first, you have to do your homework.
That's a great way to think about it. And the homework is rigorous. The literature usually lists 4 key conditions that have to be met.
What are they?
First, and this is the big one, acknowledgement. They have to actually admit what they did, clearly and without excuses. No gaslighting, no, I'm sorry you feel that way. It has to be, I did X and I understand that it caused Y.
That alone would solve probably half the conflicts in the world. Just owning the basic facts of what happened.
Right. It's about validating the victim's reality. Second is genuine repentance. This is feeling actual remorse for the act itself, not just feeling sorry that they got caught or that there are consequences.
It's moral sorrow, not just social embarrassment.
Exactly. Third is reparation, making a reasonable effort to repair the damage. If you stole money, you try to pay it back. If you ruined a reputation, you work to publicly correct the record. You take action to fix what you broke.
And the fourth.
Reform, a credible attempt to change the behavior so it won't happen again. Going to therapy, joining a program, whatever it takes to ensure you are no longer a threat.
So if someone does all of that, they acknowledge, repent, repair, and reform, then the moral landscape really shifts.
It shifts dramatically. If someone does all that, you could argue that you now have a conditional duty to at least try to move toward forgiveness. But if they do nothing, if they deny it, blame you, and show no remorse,
Then I owe them nothing.
forgiveness is still possible, again, for your own sake, to evict them from your head, but it is absolutely not something they have any right to demand or expect. This model puts the responsibility squarely back where it belongs, on the perpetrator.
It prevents forgiveness from becoming what one of our sources called cheap grace.
I love that term, cheap grace. It implies that true forgiveness has immense value. It's a currency of the soul, and you shouldn't just give it away to people who will trash it.
And that idea of value brings us to what you said was the most powerful reframing in all the research.
It is. I think this is the idea that offers the most healing, especially for people who feel just crushed by that societal expectation we started with.
The idea of a gift versus a debt.
Exactly. This is the paradigm shift. For so long, we've treated forgiveness like a debt the victim owes to society, or to God, or to the perpetrator, or even to their future self.
A moral tax that they have to pay.
Yes. But what if we stopped thinking about it that way? What if instead we started thinking of forgiveness as a gift?
How does that change the dynamic?
Well, think about the nature of a gift. A gift is, by its very definition, completely discretionary. If I decide to give you an expensive, thoughtful birthday present, what does that make me?
Generous, kind.
Right, it's an admirable act. But what if I don't give you a present?
I mean, I might be a little disappointed, but I can't call you immoral. I don't have a right to a gift from you.
You have no right to it. A gift is a bonus. It's something extra. It is beautiful when it is given, but its absence is not a moral failing.
So if we apply that to forgiveness,
If we view forgiveness as a gift, then when it happens, we can celebrate it. We can look at a survivor who manages to forgive and say, that is an act of incredible strength and generosity. That is beautiful. But when it doesn't happen, we don't condemn the person still carrying the pain. We don't inflict that second wound of judgment.
we just accept that they have chosen not to give that particular gift, and that is their right.
It is their absolute right. It's so empowering. It gives all the agency back to the victim. It says, this forgiveness, it belongs to you. You are its sole owner. You can give it away freely or you can keep it for yourself, and no one can tell you you're wrong.
It completely removes that moral tax. It allows us to say to a survivor, if you ever reach a place of forgiveness, it will be your free and triumphant act. But it is not a prerequisite for being a whole and good person.
It restores the dignity that the original offense tried to take away.
And I think that takes so much pressure off. When you remove the pressure, you actually create the conditions where real, authentic healing can happen.
And ironically, the psychologists in our sources point that out. Taking the pressure off often makes forgiveness more likely to happen down the road.
Why is that?
Because when you aren't being forced or shamed, You finally have the space to actually process the anger. You can feel it, understand it, and then one day you might choose to let it go. Not because you have to, but because you're finally ready to set that weight down.
It's the difference between dropping a heavy bag because your muscles just gave out and deliberately, consciously setting it down because you're done carrying it.
Precisely. One is a collapse, the other is a choice. And this whole deep dive has been about empowering that choice.
So let's bring this all together. If we had to synthesize everything we've talked about for the listener who is right in the middle of this struggle, what's the final takeaway?
I think the synthesis is this. We do not have a universal, strict, unconditional duty to forgive. The idea that everyone must forgive every wrong, regardless of the severity or the lack of remorse, is just. It's too blunt an instrument. It's cruel, and it ignores the realities of justice and human emotion.
But we're not totally off the hook. We can't just go out and start a vendetta.
No, absolutely not. We still have related duties. We have a duty not to seek disproportionate revenge. We have a duty to be honest with ourselves about our pain so that it doesn't curdle into a poison that affects everyone around us. And I think a duty not to use our wound as a permanent permission slip to be cruel to the world.
You don't have to forgive the person who hurt you, but you can't let that experience turn you into the kind of person who hurts others.
That's the nuance. And ultimately, we should see forgiveness not as a requirement, but as a possibility. It's a horizon you can choose to walk toward if and when you are ready. But it is your path, and you walk it for yourself.
That is a powerful and, I think, very healing place to land.
Eh.
Before we sign off, I know you always like to leave our listeners with something to chew on. What are the provocative thoughts for this deep dive?
I've got 3 questions from the sources that I think are really worth just sitting with. You don't need an answer right now, just let them simmer. Number 1, have you ever felt pressured to forgive someone before you were ready? And if you have, how did that pressure actually affect your healing process?
Did it help or did it hurt?
Exactly. Number 2, what is the difference for you between choosing to forgive and being told you must forgive? Feel the shift in your body when you consider those 2 ideas.
The difference between agency and obligation.
And finally, number 3, which I think is the most important. Can you imagine a form of forgiveness that protects your dignity rather than one that denies your pain? What would that look like in your life?
A form of forgiveness that protects your dignity. I love that. It doesn't have to be a choice between the two. You can have both. Well, listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you some new language and some new permissions to navigate these incredibly heavy moments in life.
Remember, it's a gift, not a debt.
And the choice is always yours. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.